Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsessions
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, it's Jackie Cation, and you are listening to The Dork Forest. The website's JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com if you like a determiner. Let's do the credits. Patrick Brady's going to fix this audio and video. Vilmos works on JackieCation.com, and Mike Ruekberg sang the song with his wife, Sarah. He composed it, and he will sing his version of the Mexican hat dance at the end of this show. Thank you so much for listening to The Dork Forest. Here's a scoop. I'm doing stand-up online. A lot of Zoom shows will eventually go back on the road. Sign up for my email list. It's easy to get off. It's harder to get on than it is to get off. And no harm, no foul. If ever bored, JackieCation.com, sign up for the email list. You'll find out about my weekly Zoom shows and stand up on the road eventually. You may donate to the show if you would like. I would like. Sure, I would. There's PayPal, Jackie at JackieCation.com, and there is a PayPal button on both DorkForest.com and JackieCation.com. And there's Venmo, if you like Venmo, Jackie-Cation, oddly enough. If you have listened to all of the shows, go to dorkforest.bandcamp.com, I think. The Dork Forest has a Bandcamp page. You can listen to a lot of ones that are free from pre-2009 when I started pre-recording. And then there's live episodes that cost me a couple of bucks, so I charge you a couple of bucks. There's also some stand-up. There's a story album that's very exciting there. And other than that, I have a lot of merch in my garage. Feel free to order if you know anybody who doesn't have any CDs or the DVD. And you can follow me everywhere at Jackie Cation. Let's get into the show. Hi, Jackie Cation in my garage, like I am, Dork Forest. You've chosen wisely, Rangers. Today, the final piece of the puzzle from the podcast, the SHOUTOUT SHOW. I did the podcast. You listened to it because you're all podcast listeners, Rangers. I have with me Aisha Alfa. Welcome to the program.
Hi. I should have before, but it's actually just Aisha.
It's just Aisha.
Yeah.
I sometimes like to ethnic things up. People like to make Cation into Kashian.
Uh-huh.
So what about
letters.
just Aisha? How about that? Why don't we just nail it out the get-go? And I was worried about Alpha.
I know. It's like once people see the first name, then they get intimidated by the ALFA and they're like, oh no, how do you say this? And I'm like, that's the easy part. The first part is the part that everyone's like, yeah.
Right. Super phonetic there on the back end. So no need to fight the good fight. So the Shout Out podcast, you and your co-hosts have all done the Dork Forest.
Yes. So the SHOUTOUT SHOW podcast now in its form is Sophia Zolan and I host it. And as you know, Winter Spears, who was a part of it before, is very busy because she has an actual job in the industry daytime. So she couldn't commit to this all the time. But yeah, she's one of the original
shout outs. She was one of the original shout outs and now has to she's making strides. So good for Winter Spears. Yeah, yes, that's great. Yes. But you have an album that came out tragically during. Is it tragic though? Because it came out during pandemic, and it was put out by All Things Comedy. So
there's nothing tragic about being put out, like produced by All Things Comedy, and having people like Bill Burr and Al Madrigal behind you in your quest for comedy.
Someone to give a damn. Yes.
Yeah. But it is a little bit tragic because it was like, so it's like all the culmination of my whole, this is my first album. So it's the first, the first thing I'm putting out there. And I was like, I can't wait. I gave birth and then 3 months later recorded a whole album. And in that time had to go out every single, that stuff.
You literally gave birth.
I gave birth to a
I thought this was going to be an analogy for your album. No, you gave birth to an actual child.
I actually I'm like, I had a baby. And then 3 months later went on stage and performed my special.
Yes.
And so it was like this feeling of like, oh my gosh, like the whole comedy life was coming to a peak. And then I was going to go and tour it and do all these things. And then pandemic.
So, but you got to spend a year with your baby.
Yes. Yes.
And what kind of baby
Yes.
did you have? A human baby? What boy?
I did
girl?
have a human. He's a boy. He's actually almost 2 now, and now I go down
And
here.
you are again with child.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
when
You are
all else is
enormous.
lost, you just there's nothing else to do right now, right? Like, so
Oh
I'm
my
a
God,
human.
that's so funny. Yeah, I'm gonna gestate another being. I'll be right back. No, I'll do another album. Anyway, it's called All the Parts, and people can, because of All Things Comedy, everyone can hear it everywhere because Al and Bill are great at putting stuff out. So
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
yeah,
And
All the Parts
it's out there.
is the name of the album. Aisha Alfa is, and I'm gonna.
I know
and
you're like,
is your name.
"Ooh."
Get it
Yeah.
right. And
It's
then
perfect. That was perfect.
yeah, and then but today we discussed the Dorks. Oh, and it's all at Aisha Alpha on Instagram and Twitter and podcast. And it's spelled AISHA ALFA. So if you go to aishaalpha.com, all the socials are linked, but it's also at all of those things.
Yeah, I make it
including her
easy for you.
Venmo. Why don't you send that baby $1?
Yes.
And what
there
the
we
heck?
go. I'm like, if you can find one thing, you can find them all for me. That's my philosophy.
That's what Jackie K should too, except for I think at one point I was naming things the Dork Forest, and
Yeah.
I have some regret. I think Bandcamp is the Dork Forest, and maybe my Facebook professional page is the Dork Forest.
But I feel like that's Facebook. That's
But
lost on
Facebook's
the
over.
list.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
It's over.
It's
You're
but
good.
TikTok, it's at Jackie Cation, you guys. Feel
Oh,
free
nice.
to go look at hotel
not doing
art. Anyway, so but your dorkdom is something that is close to my heart, which is Korean food.
Yes.
I have a great list here that we may get through to more of them, just if we can. But let's start with Korean food because I haven't had enough. Andy doesn't like Korean food very much. He's okay with it.
This is like, okay, can we bond over this? Because my hubby is very much like, he could just eat fried, like a piece of, not even fried, just like chicken broiled and like broccoli every night of his life. He could eat that. And I'm like, give me
Wow.
some spice, give me some flavor, give me
Yeah.
some complexity.
Yukaijang, which I'm probably pronouncing, I've that's how it's been pronounced several times correctly at different Korean restaurants, and then other times I've been glared at, and someone has pronounced it differently, but it's always spelled Yujaikang, and it's also called spicy beef soup.
Oh, yeah.
And spicy beef soup will cure whatever doesn't ail you.
It's
It literally
Korean
will
food,
prevent.
It's like medicinal, right? Like
Yeah.
there's like so much history behind it. And they have one that's like a full chicken in a pot. Like you eat the full chicken that's been boiled and called
hot pot,
samgyetang.
like a hot pot chicken. And what's it called?
Samgyetang. And it's like literally you look at it and you're like, this looks flavorless because it's just like sort of like pale, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like so garlicky and so hot, and like if you have a cold, this is the thing you eat in order to become strong. Like, and it's always every Korean dish is like, it makes you virile, or it makes you like, there's like some story behind it.
It's very potent. And
Yeah.
Yukaijang, they're like, this will fix what, if you have a cold, have Yukaijang. If you don't have a cold, it will prevent it. It's like, I think it's just the flavors of the spices. And Yukaijang, by the way, looks like it will kill you. And it can be varying degrees of spiciness.
Yes.
Because the
Do
Koreans.
you like spicy?
I do.
Yeah, me too. I'm
Not
like a
crazy.
spice fanatic. I love spice.
I like spice, but I like it. Like I used to work at a Chinese restaurant and people would say, is it spicy? And I'd say, I had heard one of my coworkers say this, and it was the best answer, which is not spicy so much as just, it's full of flavor.
Yeah.
And because I don't want it to burn my face off.
Yeah. You want to taste it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that Korean food, most Korean food is good because it is spice. There's some spice in it, whatever, like kimchi is spicy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not so spicy that you're going to not be able to eat it. But it's like, it'll give you, by the end of the meal, you'll have a bit of maybe a runny nose. It's cleared out your sinuses, whatever. Like, it's just made you healthier.
Might be a little bit of all the blood's flowed to your face.
Yeah.
And
exactly what you didn't know you needed, right?
Right.
When you're eating food.
Yeah.
Oh, but like, so I used to live in Korea for 4 years, and I had never eaten Korean food before I went over.
Oh my God, I am so jealous. What 4
Yes.
years? What years?
It was 2004 to 2008.
Okay.
And I had previously gone. So I used to be a soccer player, was sort of like what I did in life is my
A
thing.
professional soccer player?
Yeah. And before
Aisha Alfa, you
did,
guys,
I know,
everyone, if you could please follow her on all the things, and hopefully you'll get to see some soccer footage.
Yeah.
And that's
I kind
so
of forget
cool.
about that whole life before comedy, but
Sure.
I went over to Korea originally for the World University Games.
Okay.
And it was a very controlled, you know what I mean? Like you're not going out and about and stuff. You're there. It's like the Olympics for university students, really.
Yes.
And so you're sort of on these places. But we broke out. One of my girlfriends and I on the team, we like kind of broke out and went out to see like our own version of Korea with like, you know,
at least a freaking day.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
We broke all the rules. We were like, yeah, soccer. But like, what about Korea? Like we just kind of did our thing.
Yeah.
But like we went out and we didn't even know what we were ordering. We were just like, give us your best meal at some restaurant. And we're putting things in our mouth being like, I don't know if this is even something you're supposed to eat, but it tastes so like, it was just like so addictive and so good that when I went back and like moved there and lived there, I played soccer in a men's league. I worked as an English teacher. I worked editing like books and stuff.
Right.
And
you spin plates. I'm earning 9 livings.
I was like,
you were perfect for stand-up.
But I was like, I took trips to cities because that's where certain foods I liked had, you know, came from. Like I was like so into finding out about the food and like being there with it. I became such a like Korean foodie. It was magic. It was magic.
They were like, you have to go here because they do something weird to olives, or they have this incredible potato dish that something like that.
Yes. Like, so one of my favorite, I'd say I'm going to give it number 1 spot. My favorite Korean like meal is called 닭갈비.
How are you phonetically spelling that? Any idea?
I would say it's, you know, like in Korean, they have like hard D's and hard T's. So you would do like a double, or maybe like a D, A, an L in brackets, K.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's like 닭.
Yeah.
And then galbi, Galbi. And I think a lot of people
I've
know
seen
about
galbi.
Galbi, yes. And that's like the meat on the barbecue in the middle. But 닭 galbi is chicken, but it's more like a huge stir fry with like chicken and vegetables and the rice cakes and this amazing sauce. That you sit and you stir it for however long it takes to get it ready. And then, you know, you're eating all the little side dishes and all the fun stuff.
You could be full on the side dishes.
Oh my gosh. There's like 25 different side dishes.
Right. And as soon as you finish one, they're like, do you want more? And you're like, in Chinese restaurants, they make fun of you if you finish all the food. And the Koreans are like, do you want some more? Yeah, let's do this.
You better stay here until you're done. But then halfway through, after eating this amazing stir fry, which is like spicy and flavorful and so good, then they come and they chop up what you've got left on there into smaller pieces, and they add rice and kimchi and dried seaweed, and they make like a stir fry rice dish. It's like the second course, and then you eat that. And then, you know, you open your pants and you roll out at the end because it's just so much food.
Yeah.
But it's like not a really well-known dish because I know people love like bibimbap and bulgogi and kalbi, but this is one I went to Chuncheon, which is the city that 닭갈비 started in, like on a long train ride with my one friend, dragged him along and made him eat 닭갈비 at 3 different places in one day, and then took a train back home. Like I was like, no, we're doing this.
Could we please travel together? Yeah. I need to overeat when I travel. I'm just like, we are in a place we have not been.
Yes.
And Andy'll eat anything, and he wants to try everything, but he's like, well, we just ate. And I was like, yeah. How many times are you in Iceland? Anyway, we're in wherever we are, right? You have to, like Ron Jossel.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh, Ron Jossel is like, he's Canadian. I'm Canadian, so of course.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And so we went on a armed forces entertainment thing in Eastern Europe with him for Vargas Mason, and he was like, he would buy and try all the food all the time. And I was like, yeah, I will travel with you anywhere. This is a delight. How would you spell the whole chicken thing?
Okay. now again, as you know, Korean spelling, even in Korea, they spell it different in different
Right.
restaurants.
And they're
But-
going to, yes.
This is what I would say. So samgyetang. So SAMGYE
Okay. Okay.
TANG.
Okay.
That's my final answer. That's what
Oh my God. I love that because I want to eat a whole chicken almost all the time. So that's my downfall. It is the thing I love. And the thing about Korean food is that it's super healthy.
Yeah.
It's not processed except for by someone's grandmother. Right? I mean, it's been
Like an
maybe
old field and like
they've buried something, but there's no fructose. It's not happening.
I think that's when I lived in Korea, the amazing thing was, like if they have other food, like you can get Americanized food, you can get all kinds of different things. Korean fried chicken is still, as a Black woman, I'm saying this on record, one of my favorite types of fried chicken in the world.
That's because
like,
it's not too greasy.
Yeah, it's its own like version, and it's delicious and made with like good chicken. But when I lived there, if you were willing to eat Korean food, I mean, it's dirt cheap. Like legit, getting a full-on meal with all the side dishes and all the stuff would be like $4.
Right.
Getting a beer was like $1. Like it was just so cheap. And so
Yeah.
I could save all this money and then travel and do all these fun things. But like I was in heaven because I loved Korean food. And I'm like, this is the best of both worlds for me.
Totally.
It was so great.
When you just lived there for 4 years, where did you live in Seoul?
I lived in Seoul for most of it. And then I also lived in a city called Ilsan, which is just south of like the DMZ. So really close to North Korea.
Oof.
Yeah. So we saw a lot of like armed soldiers just randomly on our like, treks to school to go teach. There'd be like bunkers with guys and you're like,
sure.
Like,
yeah, thanks. That's perfect. But so how would you pick a Korean restaurant in Seoul or in that town and not be said, oh, look, the American's here, we're going to give her something
I think
that is probably delicious anyway, quite honestly.
But like, yeah. So when I first went down, I lived in Ilsan, which is, there are less foreigners there because it's
okay.
It's a smaller place. And so usually I was working at a school, and whenever you go there, it's such a tradition where they take you out for a meal and they like show you around and do all that sort of stuff. So most places, I would say, in anywhere you live in Korea, you basically like know your little general area, and that's where you do all your stuff. You do your shopping, you go to school, you go to church, you do all, you know what I mean? You get all your food from within that little area. So we just kind of walked around, saw our local places, tried things out, and then you pick your favorites and bing, bang, boom, you go there all the time.
And that's where you go. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, they loved, especially in Ilsan, they loved having foreigners there because we were teaching, they could practice their English with us. And like, people love hearing about Canada and America and all this stuff, right? So that was delightful. When I went to Seoul, there, at the time, I think it's gone now, but there was an American army base right near where we lived. And there was like a love-hate of Americans because there was, obviously, if you have a ton of foreigners in a place, it's going to disrupt certain parts of like Korean culture and stuff like that. And the whole, I don't know, international relations and sex and all the stuff that happens, right? So there was sort of like a love-hate, but they were just so, that was a place where it was like really convenient to get anything you needed. And they were really, like, Koreans are just so accommodating. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Like you go into a place and you're like I went with a friend who had some ulcer issue and he couldn't have anything spicy. So they made everything without spice. And loving Korean food, that's very difficult to do.
That is, you can't get that here in Los Angeles. They're like, no.
Yeah. They're like, go somewhere else then.
Exactly.
But like they would make him bibimbap, and instead of giving him the gochujang hot spicy sauce, they would give him they'd make him another sauce that was less spicy. Like, wow. So that kind of thing. But yeah, like, your bosses would, it's always like in the Confucius culture there, the oldest member is the wisest. Oh, so.
And he also happened to know the best restaurants?
Exactly. Yes. And they're like the head of the company, so they're willing to spend whatever amount of money. So you're like, Oh yes, I'll definitely go out for like dinner with you, boss man, and you can
Yes.
spend all this money on amazing,
Because you will know, and you can even pick. This is the perfect experience for someone else to pick dinner for you.
Oh,
it's
amazing.
yeah.
And there's the whole theory of, or not theory, but like the culture of when you go with this elevated person, you cannot stop eating or drinking until they stop eating and drinking.
No, I did not know that. But do you have to stop when they stop?
And well, no, you don't have to, but you can't stop before.
So pace yourself, Americans, if especially Californios, and yeah, because you're like, oh no, I'm full. I've had a bite, and you're like, no, come on.
You can't be one of those like I'm watching my diet. Nope, doesn't work. Like you better eat, girl. Like that's all.
Yes.
And that's me. I'm like, I'm not one of those people who goes out and gets a salad. I'm like, give me the real. Give me the meat, give me the veggies.
I can starve myself at home.
Yeah,
I don't. When I go out, I literally would like you to prepare something delicious that I don't know how to do. So that'd be great. We were gonna go for steak and eggs this morning because there's an Argentinian, my favorite there's an Argentinian restaurant that is amazing. And because it's Argentinian, the best steak and eggs. And you live in the valley, so Sepulveda off of Saticoy.
I have never actually had steak and eggs. I love eggs and I love steak.
Interesting.
Just never put them together.
Don't go to Norm's.
Okay.
Norm's is $5.99 for steak and eggs, and you know what that is? Too cheap, not expensive.
There's no steak and egg combo that can cost only that.
Yeah, the Argentinian place is only about $12 or $13 because it's a what it is it's a breakfast portion, but the steak is beautiful.
Well, I mean, Argentinian, like
that's their.
What did I have the one time? Lomo steak, and it's like the spice that they put on it. The rub is like unbelievable.
They have a lomito sandwich, which is that on beautiful French bread, and anyway, if you were to ever want to go to lunch, I would go to lunch.
I feel like this conversation, like from minute one, I was like, oh, we're going to need to eat some food together.
Yes, please. And because I went, first of all, my sister is going to be very, very jealous because she has always wanted to go to Korea and then just go there and try Korean food. So this is, maybe we could schedule it with, there are tours where they get a local
to take you around. That would be amazing.
Right. And Andy and I went on a tour of Vietnam and Cambodia.
Nice.
For 14 days. And the guy who did Vietnam was like, he was very funny because day 4, all the people on this tour were like, can we get a banh mi? And he's like, I've been taking you to people's homes for the most amazing Vietnamese food in the world. You want a 75-cent street sandwich?
Yeah.
And we're like, well, it's become very popular. Vietnamese people in America and Australia are really knocking it out. And he's like, please let me take you for a 75-cent sandwich.
That is also an important part of food culture when you go places is the street food. Like I love like Korean street food. It's not like just hot dogs and like a taco. It's like all kinds of like, those are the things I think that you need to have like the high end, the middle end, and then the low end. You got to try it all. Mm-hmm.
And what is Korea? Did they do a hand pie? I have never seen a hand pie.
I don't even know what in your brain you're thinking a hand pie is, but just
like a
name
pita?
a hand pie is my favorite.
It's the fun way to say hand pie, because like
I want a truck just called hand pie.
Right, because it could have gyros, it could have pierogi, it could have pupusas, it could have burritos, it could have tacos.
That's true. All the things. That's a good overreaching umbrella term. I have just never heard it before. Now I'm going to use it all the time.
Right. Hand pie. But do they have anything that you can walk and eat?
They have, so there's kimbap, which is kind of like sushi, but it's it just tastes different, and they have like different things that you put in it, but it's the same idea. It's like seaweed wrapped around rice and veggies or whatever. But you can get that not cut. So like now how they have these sort of whatever they're like sushi burrito things that they have now, like Korea was doing that for a long time.
Oh, like nori rolls in Japan is just a piece of nori with something in the middle and rice.
And you can get it at like 7-Eleven kind of stores
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah, same sort of thing.
Okay.
So you can get that. But they also have like tteokbokki, which is, so it's like, this is the thing that after the bar. This is the after the bar, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, everyone's kind of milling around and then the cart's there and you smell it for a block and you follow your nose to find where the place is.
Yes.
But it was just like, it's like a big pan with like a spicy red sauce and all these rice cakes. And not when we think of rice cakes here, we think of like the hard, crunchy, I'm on some sort of 1980s diet kind of thing. But there, it's more like a thick pasta. Like it's like an actual like cooked rice that's been pounded together. And it's just like big chunks of that in this spicy sauce with onions that have been sauteed and sort of like these fish cake things. And you would get them in little Dixie cups for like 50 cents and then a toothpick. And then you would like wander home dripping sauce down your face. It's so good. So filling.
What
it's
is
like
that?
Carb heavy and spicy.
Which is good because you got to soak up all the booze.
Exactly.
And because after, like here in Los Angeles, there is those hot dogs, you know, essentially it's a grocery cart, a cookie sheet, and a propane gas thing.
Yes.
And then there's bacon wrapped hot dogs.
Yes. I was
with
just talking
onions,
about those yesterday.
onions and green peppers. And they are, I think, $3.
Yeah.
Which is and that's the after bar food here. And it's there is a show on, and I have talked about it before, but there is a show on Netflix that is a docuseries. So beautifully shot of food. And it is rural China. They go to different towns in rural China, small towns, which means that there could be as many as 11 million people in them. But they're small towns, and they're essentially the foods that town is known for.
Oh, I want to live that documentary.
3 seasons. Each episode is 10 to like 13 minutes.
Wow.
And it's just like what they do is they stretch a potato forever and then they make a noodle with it. And it's always delicious, except when it's some sort of festival food. And you know that 500 years ago, some rich person said to some poor person, you get nothing. And then someone's grandmother said, well, what if I take, and haggis was born, right?
Oh, yeah.
And every culture's got it, right? Chitlins, lutefisk is the Wisconsin version, which is in Norway. The Vikings came, they burned a town to the ground. There was cod underneath the ash, so the people picked it up and were like, and then literally, lutefisk is, see if I can get this order right. It's baked and then boiled in lye. So it has the consistency. It's foul consistency. It's just gross.
It sounds like a poison. It sounds like they're making something to poison people.
Right. Lye, I don't think you're supposed to eat it.
No.
But I've had lutefisk because it is a festival meal. It is something. And let me tell you something about the ancient Norwegians. They're rolling over in their graves. They're just like, you don't have to eat that. We had to eat that.
They're like, you have pizza, right? Like that's also at the festival.
and it's $26 a plate.
Oh gosh.
Right? It's always, everything is $26 a plate. It's poor people food that has been turned into something that, I mean, and this is what this is. Aisha Alfa is that it is a bit that is not working, and I don't think I can do it. But it's literally I'm driven mad by the fact that I know I'm surrounded by poor people right now that are currently. It's too sad because it's poor people making amazing food out of nothing.
Yeah.
Right? They've stolen a handful of hazelnut coffee mates from 7-Eleven and they're making the best bread pudding.
Right.
That's going to be $26 a plate 9 months from now.
I know. Yeah. I'm like, I know, like things like in Japan, there was somebody who made a viable food out of like, basically the base was cardboard. And I was like, this is a more alarm. This is not the story that they're making food. The thing is that they felt the need to make food out of cardboard. We should be addressing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, okay. Maybe that's an angle because they are making food out of things that don't make, and I know, so in this series, there is, the bile from can you hear this helicopter in the
Yeah.
background? Okay. There's a goat at festival
It always
this one
starts
time.
with a goat. Always starts with a goat.
Yes, it does. And so the bile from the belly of the goat is used to make something like stone soup, right? Where everybody just brings it over and then it's a festival food. And you're like, you realize the backstory on that. And you know why they had to do this. Like one person had a leak that they were hoarding. So and so you know that like the ancient Chinese are rolling over in their graves going, eat the goat. You have a whole goat. So
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's I mean, it also is just like you think about some of the foods that we have and like complex dishes or even just simple things. You think about like who saw this thing in nature and went, what if? What if I pick that? Okay. And then I peel it. And then I bury it for 3 years, and then I boil it, and then I add it to this. It's like all these steps. Like, how many different versions and permutations did they go through before they got the thing? You know, what I
How
mean?
many
In the
people
end.
died? How many?
Yeah.
There was. I read anecdotal. I read a thing about how one of the guys that founded Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mhm.
He was a doctor, but he was a gynecologist. Anyway, but when they started trying
the vaginas drove him to drink, and then he came back.
well, and he was trying to figure out how to. These two guys were trying to sober up a bunch of drunks, right? And they would try anything. And so one of the things this doctor wanted to do was to sort of boost people's health. And so he had them drink the juice of sauerkraut. And occasionally, so they got in that first year, whatever that Alcoholics Anonymous was invented, they saved like 100 people, like 100 people sobered up that were on their deathbeds.
Okay.
Some people died. Like he was like, drink this.
Yeah.
We need to get some nutrients in you. And I know that sauerkraut juice has a lot of vitamins. And you're like, not if that's all they're drinking, Doc.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, he's been drinking a gallon of moonshine a day. Well, this can't kill him. Bam. And then they'd be like, let's not do that again. I was like, wow.
It's like the trial and error of these things before there was all these regulations, right? Or just like I watched a documentary about some clinic and I don't know where it is, where it's just water therapy, where you just drink water. And they're like, yeah, he was proudly telling the documentarian that their youngest patient was like 6 weeks old. And I was like, can we find those parents? Can we get the police?
Oh my God.
Because why would you ever be giving your kid only like, it's just like, this is all wrong.
Keep that guy talking. Right, somebody, sound guy, just go.
Yeah.
Go look for that baby.
Exactly.
And, holy smokes.
I'm like, there's just some crazy stuff that people do. And then when it works, then you're a hero. But before that, weren't you just a murderer? Like, weren't you?
You were a murderer. Yes, as a matter of fact.
Those first versions of however they prepared the fish with the lye, I'm like, that was murder.
Yeah,
like, that person might have stumbled upon the one version that was edible and been like, I guess I'm done murdering. Like, you know.
Well, I guess my career as a murderer is over.
Yeah.
What else is there to do? Well, why don't you go back to fishing? Yeah. So in Korean food, they eat all the food, right? I mean, it is beef, it is chicken, but it is also fish,
pork
as well.
Like, they eat. There's a lot of pork in Korean food. Samgyeopsal, which is one of my favorite dishes, is pork belly galbi, essentially, and it is on it. I'm like, it's like a food that was dropped down from heaven. It's so good and so greasy and so yummy. But it was like even, they have like the equivalent of like chicken wings, where it's, pieces of chicken. Then they also in the same menu have like chicken feet, and then also just the tendons from the chicken feet. And you're like, what? Like, it's just, they eat everything. They eat all the parts, which is, this makes sense. Like that's a better way to have, used food.
For sure. Especially, it's such a grandma, we don't have to throw that out. We could put it in the soup.
Right.
And-
Exactly. And then some American can come and go, what is that? And take it out and then just finish the rest.
My dad loves tripe.
Oh.
And I was like, it tastes like it has the consistency of a zipper, Dad. I can't do it. And he's like, don't think about it. It's really, really good.
That's what everyone says, don't think about it. I'm like, I'm already thinking about it. I already know what it is.
Did
I
you
can't
not
unthink
hear?
it now.
Right. I just said the words. It
Yeah.
means I'm thinking about it. And because my grandmother was Armenian and so he's the immigrant kid and so used all the foods.
Yeah.
And he is one of his favorite foods is this incredibly bland chicken and rice dish where you cook it almost, it's a mush. It's a chicken and rice mush with salt. It's essentially, it almost has the consistency of cold oatmeal, but it's hot. And that I would posit that you would enjoy it.
Really?
Just because it tastes like chicken and rice and it tastes like good salty. It's probably bar food is what it would be.
Right.
It would be great bar food.
Gets you drinking more, fills you up. You can keep
it's
going.
that stumble home. It's the stumble home food because you're like, okay, well, this will soak up all of the and he was very sick at one point. He had they screwed up some heart surgery like 5-6 years ago, and he lived. They kept opening up his heart 3 times. They left something inside of his body that they had to open him up again. And every time they opened him up, my sister-in-law was like, "Oh, he's dead. There's no way he's living through this." And I was like, okay. She's the angel of death, and she would always be like, "It doesn't matter what you say." She's like, "Oh, that'll kill you." She's a doctor. But he wanted this so bad. He was like, when he's sitting, he's like, "There's this stuff that my mom used to make when I was really."
From the old country.
He's 80 years old. He's on his what we think is his deathbed. He's like, "Does anyone want to make this chicken mush for me?" Your Aunt Alice knows how. She's 10 years older than I am, and so she's 90.
It sounds like the perfect food for exactly that, though, because it sounds like if it's mush, it would be easy to digest, and rice and good carb, a good bit of protein in there. And it's not super fatty, not hard like a red meat or a really fatty kind of pork or something. So I could see how that, and then salt. I mean, who doesn't like salt?
Right. It's essentially just you bake a chicken, salt, pepper, and garlic. And
garlic makes everything good.
Yeah. So you bake that chicken and then you take it all off the bone and then you make rice with that chicken in it.
Oh, I can get on board with this.
Yeah, and
like
then
a risotto, but with just like chicken and
right, and it's all shredded and super little, so that it's just a sick person food.
Yeah.
And wait, or is there barley? Is it maybe it might be a different grain, but whatever it is, it might be bulgur, and whatever it is,
grain and a chicken and
it's grain and chicken, and that's all.
Yeah.
I've hijacked the Korean food talk.
Well, I feel like there's probably something exactly the same as that in Korean food. You know what I mean? Like there's because like we said, it's literally, they'll be like, this is medicine for fill in the blank. Like every food, if you are eating kimchi, they're like having a hard time with, erections, eat this kimchi. It's like what?
This guy makes an amazing boner kimchi. This person, did you want to have babies? Eat this kimchi.
They have all the, and I love about Korea how there's nothing that's off limits, like as far as health is concerned. It's like, do you need to poop? Are you having a problem growing breasts? Are you like, it's like every little possible thing. They're like, well, we've got a food for you. And like,
right. It's I have done an episode of the Dork Forest, a very good fun episode about Korean spas.
Girl.
With Kira Sultanovich. Yeah,
I was just gonna ask if it was because she always goes and she talks about it. And then I love Jimjilbangs. That's the Korean spa.
It's called Jimjilbang?
Jimjilbang. It's
okay.
Like bang means room, and then the first part is like sauna kind of thing. Idea like many pools. I'm supposed to go to Kilmartin's after this, and I don't want to. I want to go to a Korean spa, and the one in Northridge, which is the one that she suggested, which is because I like Olympic over in Hollywood. Any here.
Oh
no, because I was good. When I first found out about them was literally like about a year and a half ago. And then I was like, great. And then everything closed down.
Yeah.
So I'm still, and now that I'm pregnant, I'm like, it's not a good idea.
Not now.
But in a little bit, I'm going to be, oh yeah. But
Yeah.
I've heard the Olympic one. I've heard about that one.
And I've heard of Wii Spa, but it seems a little too popular.
And
what I
very,
like about a
hoity-toity, isn't it?
yeah,
Wii Spa?
yeah. Here's what I want: normal-looking humans,
Yeah,
walking around noodly, because that's just
Noodly.
nakedy, noodly, just boing it around, and because they get up in your business.
Oh yeah.
And then guess what? Then my business is super clean, and I'm very happy about that. Everything is very smooth. It's a scrub and then a weird fake facial, like a tiny facial with just some milk water and a couple of cucumbers.
Just splash, you're like, you're good.
Oh, just buckets of water thrown at you. Did you go in Korea?
I used to go all the time in Korea. Like loved it. And the funny thing is too, like it was probably the first time other than in sporting situations where I would just be fully naked in front of a bunch of people and there's just no shame because like I remember girls like 1 foot up on a stool blow drying their pubic hair and you're like, there is no shame here, let's do this. But because of my skin color, in some places I would go, like people had never really seen this color, so they were
excited,
rub my skin, and
sons of bitches.
You're naked sitting next to some old ajumma who's like 80 years old, and she comes up and rubs your skin. But the best part was at the time I had a nipple ring. Okay, so this is maybe TMI right now, but it's out there now.
When you're 18, you can do whatever you want,
right? It's like. And people would like go and get their friends and bring them over to me. Like, look at this one, look at her. Look. And I had one old lady who was so lovely, rub my skin and then give my nipple a little flick on her way away from me to the next pool. And I was like, it's so funny because you think about it. And I was like, in any other situation, I would have been like, what? Like so offended.
Yeah.
But in a Korean jjimjilbang, I was like, par for the course. Like, what do you want? Like,
I have seen like a row of Korean ladies scrub themselves at this running water thing.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, we aren't that far from primates.
No.
Because we look.
And they help each other. It's literally like monkeys grooming each other, right? It's the same.
Because it's free beautiful. As opposed to the $20 that it costs, because it is very, very inexpensive and very beautiful and tip big. We were in a pandemic, you guys. I went my first time 2 days after being peak vaccinated. I took myself to Northridge, and did you
love it?
I loved it, and it was lightly attended, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm willing to do this, and she wore a mask. Because
I'm surprised actually.
So when you go into a Korean spa here anyway, they're just wearing it's a matching black bikini. Mm-hmm. They're all wearing black bikinis, and she had a matching black mask.
I love it.
But so it wasn't, it was just a cloth mask, but it was perfect. Yeah.
I'm surprised they weren't like, we're not wearing masks, but we are all going to have samgyeopsal afterwards. So you can rest assured we are fine. The virus will not get us.
The food's not that good at the Northridge place.
Oh, okay. That's an important thing.
Have you been to good Korean here in Los Angeles?
So I have not yet been to a place that I'm like, I can really like 100% vouch for. Mm-hmm. There's a place that I love in Toronto that has a chain down here.
Really?
What is it called now again? I know I forgot the name. Bukchang Dong. And it's one of my favorite dishes is sundubu. Very fun to say as well. But it's
how do you spell the name of the place?
BUK
mm-hmm.
and then Chang CHANG.
And then Dong?
Dong. Yeah.
and what's the name of the thing you like there?
The food I like there is called sundubu. So SOON.
Okay.
DUBU.
Okay.
JIGGAE. And it means soft tofu soup.
Oh.
And so it
has to be
so
amazing
good.
If I'm gonna love a soft tofu soup.
Now here's the thing. I was always like, I'm not like, before I went over, I wasn't a big fan of tofu. It wasn't like a big, you know what I mean? But the tofu in the soup is just like having egg in a soup. Oh. So it's really like soft and it picks on the flavor, whatever. But the soup itself, especially if you get a kimchi sundubu, because then you've got the spicy kimchi that's been stewed in, and it's so like spicy and tasty and yummy. And then you have these little pops of the soft tofu, which give your mouth a break and like cool it off. And then you get, it's so good. So that, I mean, that place, the one in that I went to here in LA was good, but it wasn't as good as the Toronto, you know, the original chain I had gone to in Toronto. But for takalbi, which is my, like I said, the chicken one that I talked about earlier, there is a place called Mapo Takalbi that is unbelievable and very, very authentic to like the Korean experience that I had when I was there. And it's just MAPO and then DAK Galbi. Mapo.
Right. And that's the name of the place?
That's the name of the restaurant. And you know what's funny is, so I forced my husband to take me there multiple times when I first came. But the last time I went, I walked in and I saw this woman sitting there and I was like, wait a minute, I know her. And it was a friend of mine who I had known in Korea, who lives in Canada and happened to be in town for a weekend. And she sought out the best takalbi restaurant. And we both ended up, it was like a reunion of being in Korea. And we were both like, this is a true Korean experience.
Right.
Now.
Okay. Now I feel vindicated because you like it and I like it. And you can feel vindicated because we both found the same place.
Exactly. It was really amazing.
I am currently making a fish stew, but I swear to God, for tonight, I would have gone out to that. I would have found that place and gone out to it.
It's so, I really.
Is it in Koreatown?
I'm the worst at knowing where anything is.
Okay.
I like literally,
is it over the hill?
And then, yeah, it's somewhere down there.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's like Koreatown adjacent because it's not like in the busyness of it. No, maybe it's in Koreatown. I'm literally the worst. I don't know how to get, like, I get out of my house and I'm like, am I facing north or east? Like but
me too. And this is what this is how I justify it. I say, I don't get a lot of my self-esteem from my sense of direction.
There you go. Right.
Leave me alone.
I don't need that. I have a GPS on my phone.
The GPS. It's a great way to meet people. Hey, have you guys seen a thing that looks like this? Anyway,
just yesterday, I drove around the same block 3 times, and for sure the people on the block were like, "Is she looking to buy drugs?" Like, I don't know what she's doing because I was just so lost.
You're like, no, land. I'm looking to buy. In here in the valley, if I'm ever on San Fernando Boulevard, I'm lost. I swear to God, I've lived
you
here,
up there. We'll flag you down.
Right. 22 years I've lived in Los Angeles, and I have been so lost on several occasions that I have taken myself to lunch.
This is the thing. This is the exact thing. This is how I found so many good restaurants that I can never find again. Is you're just lost and you're like, well, I'm just gonna eat here, and it's delicious and it's an experience. It's an adventure within your own city. It's great.
It is. It really is. It's there used to be a great a place that I really liked on White Oak and Sherman Way. Little Korea. It's a Korean mall.
Oh, okay.
So there's a great grocery store.
I love.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to make Korean food too.
Do you?
Yes.
What do you make?
I make like Korean fried rice, or I'll make I'll just add, I'll make a soup or something like that, but I'll just sort of whatever's in my fridge, bibimbap, make a bibimbap with that. But it's nice to go and actually get the proper ingredients if I can. And
right.
I always have kimchi and gochujang, which is the spicy red sauce, in my fridge at all times.
How am I spelling gochujang? Because sriracha, whatever. I want to try gochujang.
So people spell it either with a K or a G, but K-O, and then so many different
J-U maybe?
Yeah, it's K-O-J-U, koju, and then J-A-N-G is the last part. But it's some people call it like gochu or gojujang or gojujang. So different variations of that.
And so if I say that word several ways and then go spicy red sauce,
the
person at the grocery store will go find me a bottle of it.
Well, you can get it at Ralph's now.
Oh,
you
really?
Can buy it. Yeah, that's where my hubby buys me that. And also there's often kimchi now at the Ralph's that we go to, because it's becoming so popular, right? So but yeah, if you go to a real Korean grocery, then you're getting the real what you could get back home in Korea.
It's right.
Back home. I'm Nigerian Canadian.
You're not
right?
Korean.
I'm like,
you're Canadian.
that's not my home.
But I do think Yeah, so that place used to be great. Then there was a really great place within walking distance of my house
Oh, nice.
that was called Atlas Korean
Oh,
because for some
I've heard of
reason
that.
it has an Atlas statue on the top of the strip mall
Uh-huh.
but just above the Korean restaurant, and it no longer is very good, but it is currently a Korean pinball
This is this
place.
I know this place because I've been there with my friend Jonathan Giles, who's also a comedian here that I think that you know.
Mhm.
There was pinball in the front, and it was now it's an all you can eat Korean
Which
Kalbi
makes
place.
it not that great.
Yeah, but
It's
great for birthdays.
really good for birthdays and 30 pinball machines.
Yeah.
So I have only been to it once, and for some reason, and then the pandemic started.
Right.
And so I was disappointed because literally the only thing I want is that Yukai-Gen. And but now I am very excited because there are other things to try, including that Dork galbi.
Yes.
And
we'll go sometime. The thing is, I think with Korean food, because so much of it is social and communal, you have to find good Korean food friends. You know what I mean? Who enjoy different kinds of foods and who enjoy it. Because like I love my husband, I love eating with him, but I know the whole time he's like worried about his acid reflux. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't need that on my conscience while I'm eating everything.
Do you know? Yeah. Do you know Amy Anderson?
No, I mean, I know from Winnipeg, but I don't think I know who you're talking
about.
Well,
Amy Anderson is Korean. Her parents adopted she was adopted by the whitest family in rural Minnesota.
Oh boy.
And her daughter grew up on TV, was like one of those child actor kids.
Okay.
And might have been Community. Whatever.
Oh.
But what doesn't matter. Turns out, talking about Amy Anderson, who was on that same Eastern Europe tour with Ron Josel. And Antoine Young, I don't know if you know Antoine Young, one-liner guy. He's a South LA comic, and I haven't seen him since. He must be a Comedy Store guy that Vargas knew. But Antoine, very funny one-liner guy. And it was Ron Josel and Amy Anderson. And Amy Anderson is Korean, and when we came home, all of us went out for Korean food because she knows she has a favorite Korean place.
Oh, yes. That's the way to do it.
And she has been to Korea several times, but I don't think she got to live there. But she has been several times in search of fam, looking for family. And but she is, and now there were 3. Aisha Alfa. We have 3 people that are willing to go out for Korean.
We need to make like a Korean food club, and then like once a month we go try a new place or something. I'm like 100% serious because I'm like,
when are you having this baby? Because it's got to be after the baby.
You're like, can you have the baby soon so we can do
chop
this?
On the baby.
The baby's coming soon. This baby's out in like a few weeks. So
really?
Yeah. Let's make some dates here in the late summer.
Holy smokes! Do you want to reveal the gender, or do you not know? Whatever.
Have I told?
Because you have a little boy.
We have a little boy. I think I've said it publicly that we're having a girl.
Aw, one of each. And now one of everyone's like, you've reproduced. What they will be when they grow up is up to them, of course.
I know, totally.
But from the get, it turns out you get to pick.
You can dress them that she has.
Right, and you can dress her like a pumpkin. You can dress her like a dog. Because she is your little potato. Yeah. And that's so I know. And Ron will go too, probably.
I feel like Ron, I'm like, I don't even know Ron that well, but just like I know him sort of through other comedians from Toronto, and he's so funny and so quirky, and I feel like he would be the most fun to like be in a club of going to try new foods. Right? He'd be right in there.
Make a note, Jackie. Make Korean food club. And
I'm not even kidding you. When this baby's on, I'm like, so Jackie, about that club.
I don't think you're wrong. I know that Rangers are like, can we be in this club? What's happening? I will report back.
Maybe you could do like the new Oprah book club, but it's like for Korean food club. And then all your fans will then go to these places and it's just going to become its own thing.
It could be. I wish I could remember the place though, that Amy told us about. And she was like, we all walked in and they were like, "Oh, pile of Americans, let's get you a regular table." And Amy was like, "No, we want to set up high on the because we also did barbecue, which I don't always do barbecue."
So yummy.
It is yummy.
It's like you got to do it with a bunch of people. You can't. That's not something you do on your own.
You can't do it on your own, and you can't. It has to be. You have to make sure that the meat is good.
Yeah.
Like if it were an Argentinian barbecue, I'd be on board. Or if it's the right Korean restaurant. So,
yes.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure Antoine would be into this. So I'm doing a joke about Antoine Young because on that tour, I wrote him a joke that he didn't want. And then I said, "Can I do it?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, so I started doing it, and he was like, "Oh, that's a great joke." And I said, "You'll be happy to know your name will be on my album." Because I will tell people to go see you. And he's like, "I will take that publicity."
That's awesome. That's even better. Just somebody else doing a joke where you get to be mentioned.
Yeah. Bamford does it for me all the time. It's she's constantly mentioning me in her act. And I'm like, "Please do." And I'll take any kind of.
She told me about you. Actually, I did one of her afternoon shows a while back because I went to go watch, and then she said, "Is there anybody here who wants to open?"
Oh, there you go.
Like, yeah, and then we all went for lunch afterwards. And she was great, but she was like, "I have to introduce you. I have to send your information to and she was like,
right.
To Jackie Cation. She does it great." And now here we are,
And now here we are, and we're almost at an hour. So
so crazy.
That is crazy because I did not know that we would be able to cover Korean food for an hour.
I'm like, this is amazing that it's already been an hour. I've already got a new term, hand pies, that I now get to use for life. And we started a food club. This is the most productive hour I've had in all of the pandemic.
I think we got to end it there. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys, Rangers, if you would, all the people's listening, see Aisha Alfa in doing stand-up comedy with or without her babies. And listen to the SHOUTOUT Show. The SHOUTOUT Show. And if you go to @Aisha Alfa, it's AISHA ALFA on Instagram, Twitter, Venmo, probably Snapchat, definitely and it's just AishaAlfa.com, which is probably linkable to all the things. Your new album is called All the Parts, and that's listenable on Spotify and Amazon and Pandora and all the places. Exactly. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. This has been so much fun. What a delight. What a delightful way to have a midday. Now I'm going to go make some Korean food and think about you. You're
not wrong. Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?